Gonna wait for Mr. Moody to keep signing things here.
You okay to get going?
Go ahead.
All right, I'd like to call this meeting of the Madison Board of Selectmen, Madison Select Board, to order on Monday, August 24th, 2020. Please join me in saluting the flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Let the record show all members are present. Consent agenda, warrant number 4, 8/10/2020. Payroll register number 33, 8/13/2020. Number 34, 8/20/2020.
Make a motion to approve.
Second.
A motion and a second to approve the warrant and payroll register as read. Any questions? Seeing none, all those in favor? All in favor, the motion carries. Acceptance of the meeting minutes from August 10th, 2020.
Make a motion to accept them.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to approve the minutes from August 10th, 2020. Any questions? Seeing none, all those in favor? All in favor, the motion carries. Mr. Savage, any old business?
None for me.
Mrs. Dwyer?
None for me.
Mr. Gopian?
None.
Mr. Moody?
Nothing but this chair.
The chair is noted. Items of communication, Mr. Town Manager?
Just a couple of things to pass along to you. You may have noticed some activity down at the former Madison paper site. Bancroft Contractors is going to start demolition of the specialty minerals buildings. That should go on in the next couple of weeks. I know they've been in contact with the road commissioner about shutting down the sidewalk, and they've also been in touch with the fire chief, just in case they have any special needs down there. And you also probably noticed in those warrants that you signed, there was a separate GoLab warrant for $187,000. That's part of the money that the town received from the CDBG grant of $250,000 that goes towards buying boiler equipment for the site. And so that should get a boiler on site probably within the next couple of weeks, hopefully, because the goal is to have heat in that building by November so that they can continue the work that needs to be done to get ready for their equipment. Tax season, tax bills have been mailed out. People have been coming in faithfully paying their taxes. The liens for unpaid 2019 taxes will be sent down to the Registry of Deeds tomorrow. This year we are going to post about 155 liens. Last year we did 180, so that's less than last year, which is a good thing. We're heading down the right direction. This will be the last time we meet in August. We won't meet till the 14th of September. Just by way of communication, the town office will be closed on Monday, September 7th for Labor Day. And I will be off that week on vacation for the 7th, and I'll be back on the 14th when we meet again. So that's all I have.
Thank you. David Gopian?
Yes, which building is the one with the mines? Is that the brick building? No, on GoLab, they're gonna tear which one down?
So the specialty minerals buildings, those are the ones right on the corner of Pine Street and Main Street. You got the big smokestack,
yeah.
and we've got those other buildings.
Big white ones.
Yeah. They need that space for a chip yard and loading and unloading there.
So that, those are the ones they tear down first?
Yep.
Okay, new business. Number 1, at this time I'd like to open a public hearing to determine a dangerous building at 76 Old Point Avenue. The public hearing is open at 6:35.
Yep. And I believe that Maynard Young, or Mitch Young, is joining us by phone. I have him on speaker. Are you there, Mitch?
Yeah, right here.
Okay. So Mitch and Barbara Young are the owners of the property at 76 Old Point Avenue. They reside in New Hampshire. So they were going to try to join us either by phone or by Zoom, so they're on the phone. In your packets, I prepared a separate handout that has the pictures in it. I apologize, the pictures are black and white on the copy, so they don't come across as well. But this is essentially the inspection that was done in July 8th of the property. I refer to an inspection that Susan Hathaway did when she was our code officer in June of 2019. A lot of the same violations that were present in June are still there today. Now, one of the things that I've been talking back and forth with Mitch and Barbara about is they have a tenant that is still technically committed to this property. Although she is not living in the property, she has some of her possessions at the property, and she is kind of dragging her feet in there. The tenant is making Mitch and Barbara Young force her out through the eviction process. And as you're probably all aware, with the laws that are in place for COVID-19, the eviction process has gone much slower than it typically would. So they've told me they've got a court date scheduled for September 25th, and hopefully on that date they'll be finalizing the eviction. And so it'll be after that that they would actually have the ability to get into the property and start doing the repairs that need to be done. So in addition to this inspection with the pictures on it, I've prepared a list that I did email to Mitch and Barbara, but I'm not sure if they got my emails. It's a list of about 23 total items that need to be repaired before this building will be ready to be rented again. And it's has to do with some heating, some water, some electrical, and some repairs in the interior and on the exterior of the building. And so that's essentially what we have found that needs to be done. And I would add that I have talked with Mike Corson with the Water District and with Marty Berry at the Electric Works. Right now the water and the power is off on the building, and I've kind of asked them to work with me that if someone comes and wants the water and the power turned on, that I know about it ahead of time, so we can make sure that these arrangements are done and another renter isn't, brought into the building. So.
Yeah, at this point, it looks like we'll most likely get it fixed to sell the house, get rid of it, that's driving that.
Okay.
Let the girl did the specs in there, and we got electrician in there, and he redid all the wiring downstairs. So that was already fixed once. There's 2 plugs downstairs that didn't work. The reason these people went in and asked for the inspection is she owes me $6,000 for rent, and she don't want to pay the rent. So it's like, hey, let's go back and go to the city and see if we can get the infrastructure set up, so we don't have to pay you anything. Now she's got her crap in there, using her house as a storage unit. Besides the toilet here, which I had a really hard time trying to find a contractor to even go in there and work. Last year, when the other girl checked everything out, I put in a new water heater, we redid the wire, the plumbing, and we had the electrical guy come in and redo the electrical. The rest of the stuff is there, we know it needs to be done, and we'll have it done before we either rent it or sell it, period.
So the reason for this public hearing is you as a select board can determine this to be a dangerous building because of the code violations. In other words, it's not inhabitable, and it meets the criteria. In order to meet a dangerous building criteria, you have to meet at least one of the 7 criteria in Title 14, Section 6326. And this meets 3 of those criteria. One, the doors and windows on the premises are broken or left unlocked. The premises is deteriorating as to constitute a threat to public health or safety. And then a code officer has determined that the premises are abandoned or unfit for occupancy. And mainly that has to do with the lack of a functioning heating system. Now, the heating system can be repaired, and I've talked with Mr. and Mrs. Young about that. But as it stands right now, there's a lot of work that needs to be done before that heating system can be repaired. And the last 3 tenants they've had in there have had the same complaint. There's an old wood-burning furnace down there that requires electrical hookups and ductwork to be hooked up, and they've never been able to get it to work. So.
Well, no, it was working fine. My daughter lived there for 6 years, that's what she used for heat. Okay? The guy that came in and wanted to grow the marijuana in the house got pissed off because I wouldn't let him do contractor work toward the ramp. I said, no, he's the one who went down and tore the wiring out and tore the vent out of the wood heater. So that's what happened there. It's not like we haven't been doing some work there, because we have. We've had that house for 18 years, paid $1,200 a month for that fucking place. We pay you guys taxes every year on that house. If you guys want us to start coming in and telling you what to do with the house,
So as I was saying, what the board can do is if you deem it to be a dangerous property, then you as a board have to take action on it and give a notice to correct. But you do have the leeway to give time in this situation as to when you expect it to be corrected before the property can be rented again.
Any comments? Anything else? Any other comments about the public hearing? Anything we do has to come out of the public hearing first. Mr.
What's,
Moody.
again, what is the date that court date?
They're hoping to have a court
September
date
25th.
on September 25th, so about 30 days from today.
From there, we're taking our small claims.
But you're hoping, Mitch, that on the 25th, after that, you'll be able to get access to the property.
That's right, that's federal law now for the COPA stuff, so they're saying we can't go up there, we can't look at the property. I mean, I'd like to go up there tomorrow and drive up there and say, you know, what the hell has this woman done up here? Well, we can't. As soon as we go up there, the whole thing will be vexing of this null and void.
Steve Moody.
I hate to call this building a dangerous place right now, but I think we need to have some type of destination or date of the bulk of these repairs. Because this seems to have been going on for some time. But there's gotta, you know, we've gotta have an end to it somewhere here in the near future. And I don't know if this gentleman, what he expects to have for time to get this stuff addressed.
Well, here's what I expect, after she moves out on the 27th, talking to Tim, he said, you guys give me a 90-day notice to correct, that's fine. That's all what happens in friggin' December. Now we just need to look around and see if we can find some contractors that can come up there and fix this property. If this woman didn't know it was $6,000, we'd have the money and the place would already been fixed. Like I said, the water situation we have up there, you guys know what this is, it happens every winter. We had 3 broken pipes from the winter, that was it. When she moved into the house, she said, look, I can't pay the deposit, I can't pay, give me $900 and I'll get this stuff fixed. We gave her the $900, none of that happened. So that's it, it's our fault, we screwed up, period. I told Tim earlier on the phone, we're not renting that property again until it's fixed, and we're gonna rent it to a property manager. We're not trying to handle this ourselves because we're 165 miles away from you guys. I'm a cancer guy, and I have bad nephropathy, I can hardly walk. So it's like, yeah, it's a pain in the ass for us to drive up there. So as far as I was concerned, we sell the place, so my wife won't let me. So. When we first bought that house 18, 19 years ago, it was freaking gorgeous.
Yeah, I think everybody here is pretty familiar with the property. It is a nice
Yeah.
property, yeah.
Inside looks real nice. It's certainly not a danger. And the electrical stuff, we can give you the receipts on the electrical. We had a whole new wiring last year, new fuse boxes put in and everything. So that's a lie. And the stuff on the stupid porch, as far as the ceiling goes, you know what? We've got a porch here. I don't have a ceiling on it. Somebody needs to go over there, rip the boards out of the top of the thing, and fix the railing. It's not that bad. The back stairs that are there, yeah, you'll notice, buy a whole new set of stairs, just put them there. That's an easy fix. So it's a lot of stuff that's going to be a really hard fix. The hardest thing is dealing with this heating system, you know?
Yeah.
That's the hardest thing.
Trigopian.
Is he going to court here in Maine?
Where are you going to court for this eviction hearing? Is it in Somerset County?
Yeah, it is Barbara. Yeah, Somerset County.
That would make
Right
sense.
there, it's Scotty.
Yep, Superior Court in Skowhegan.
Yeah.
Superior Court?
Well, Somerset County Court. So,
All right, do we need anything else on the Trigopian?
Yeah, is this his first time he's been in court with her?
Have you taken her to court before, the current tenant, Mitch?
No,
Okay.
no.
Yeah, maybe.
Mr. Moody.
I for one don't have a problem with this 90-day extension. But I also, people need to understand that this has been an ongoing thing. That after 90 days, we're gonna be forced into taking some kind of action.
I was thinking about that. I think the position of the town is, we just want to ensure that the property is not rented again without,
Oh, yeah.
without the things being fixed.
Yeah.
So
I'll tell you what,
I don't,
before we rent it for, before we sell it, we'll call you guys, send your inspector out, look at the house, everything's okay, and that's it. You know?
Yeah.
Some of the stuff that you guys have on that list is either already fixed, or it really doesn't need to be fixed. You know, there's 2 outlets downstairs that don't work. So what? My house right now, I've got 3 or 4 outlets that don't work. That's not a hazard to the house. Electrician came in, rewired everything after this woman moved in, right here. I can write a book on this stuff. This woman moved in, her daughters were all heroin addicts. She ended up with 5 kids, so she had all this money coming in every month for the 5 kids. She moved in, we thought she was going to be great. She was like $6,000, $7,000 a month coming in. She paid her first month's rent, she didn't pay anymore. Her kids went downstairs and ripped all the wiring out of the house downstairs. I had to get a guy to come over and deal with all that. And then we had to take her in court. So, we keep getting screwed on this place. It's driving me crazy.
So let's,
Like I said, we're not doing this again without a property manager.
okay.
so our choices here are, when we finish this public hearing, is to either say it's uninhabitable,
Right.
or we can give him the time to get it fixed
Well,
without having any renters.
so in order to be able to have everything in writing done properly, you would need to declare it a dangerous building, uninhabitable, and then issue a notice to correct. Now, one of the things I was thinking of is you could issue the notice to correct to read that the repairs need to be done within 90 days of the eviction being finalized.
Right.
So if the eviction takes longer than September 25th to be finalized, your writing simply says, these repairs need to be done within 90 days after the eviction is finalized. And for us as the town, we're just concerned that no one's in there in the interim.
Yeah, that's fine with me.
All right, anybody else have anything on the public hearing? Okay, at this time, at 6:46, I'll declare the public hearing closed. And we'll look to a motion to... Mr. Gokia.
I make a motion that we give him 9 days after the conviction. No,
With no renters.
with no renters until it's inspected by our
A code officer.
officer, yeah.
All right, do we have a second?
I'll second
Okay, we have a motion and a second, give them 90 days after the eviction. No renters until our code enforcement officer has deemed it livable. Any other questions? Mr. Savage?
Does that motion also say that it's a dangerous building or no?
Right, so I thank you for catching up on that. I think if Mr. Gopi wants to amend that to say that he motions to declare it,
Dangerous building.
and
Yes.
that would incorporate all that.
All right, seeing any other questions? Seeing none, all those in favor? All in favor, the motion carries. Thank you, Mr. Young.
Thank you,
All
Mitch,
right, thank you
and
guys.
and
Have a good night.
I'll be in touch.
Night, bye, Kevin.
Okay.
Okay, number 3, matching grant award for economy trophy. Number 2, I'm sorry.
So way back in 2019, a fellow by the name of Robert Hagopian applied for a matching grant from the town. He has completed the work at Economy Trophy. I think many of us have been by to see it. The front of the store looks great, and you should be commended for the energy that you continue to put into that building. So as normal, we needed a motion from the board to fund the $5,000 since he has met his match from Tiff.
So moved.
We have a motion and a second to pay the $5,000 out of the TIF account for the matching grant program to Economy Trophy. Any questions? Seeing none, all those in favor? We have 4 in favor, and we have 1 abstention, Mr. Open?
Yes.
And we have 1 abstention. The motion carries. Discuss proposed land donation, South Main Street.
Some of you might be familiar with this property right behind the health center. I wrote down South Main Street, actually the access is off of Garden Street. This was referred to, I guess, years ago as Pomelo Park. Is a place where there's actually been some development for camping in there. There's a well, there is an outhouse, there is a campfire area, and there's like a covered eating picnic area back there. It has not been used very much over the years. I know the Boy Scouts have used it in the past. It was deeded way back in the day to the Kiwanis Hall, and the Kiwanis were the ones that were in charge of making sure it was used for scouting and camping activities. When the Kiwanis folded in Madison, they deeded the property over to the American Legion. And so John Bryant and Ralph Withy with the Legion have asked the town if you folks would be interested in owning this piece of property and the maintenance that goes along with it. It's about just under 4 acres back there, and access is right at the back of the parking lot of the health center. I did take some pictures, I don't know how well they came across on your copies there, but it is a fairly nice little area back there. I've talked with Jeff, the road commissioner, and he has some thoughts on whether or not that would be a good idea for the town to take over maintenance of that. I've also talked with the chairman, and so I thought at the very least I would bring it to the board for discussion and see what your thoughts were.
What about the Somerset Woods trustees?
They,
Anything there for them?
the Legion did approach Ernie Hilton and the Somerset Woods trustees. They did not see it as something that fit with their mission. And it was not large enough and required probably more maintenance than they are set up to do. And I think that's the issue that everyone's running into. The Legion's not set up to maintain the property. There are a couple of good-sized trees down there, and you know, if you were gonna maintain it, it would require a little bit of attention every year.
When's the last time it was used?
Do you have an idea, Jeff, when the last time you were
It's probably been 2, possibly maybe even 3 years, if not longer, that I'm aware of. I know the Boy Scout troop here in town had used it, and we used it as a scout troop over Anson and had a few outings there, but other than that, it's been quite a few years.
Off and on, the school has gone there. I mean, you
When
take
we
it.
went down and we cleaned up, this was back probably in the 80s. We went back down there and one of the teachers got some stitches and that was the end of it. Luckily the health center was there.
Was that you, Mr. Gordon?
No, it's a female.
So what's your feelings on maintaining it, Jeff?
I just feel that we have enough properties in this town that we already maintain and take care of, and as a highway department, with the crew that we have and the projects that we do through the course of the summer, I just feel that we wouldn't have time to take care of it. I would hate to see anything happen to it, but I think that it maybe needs to be researched to see if somebody else might be interested in it.
Does that go all the way down to the brook, Long Pond?
I don't think it goes that far back.
Is it marketable for residential development or?
Well, that's a very good question. I did check the deeds, and the deeds are restricted. So it's not to be used for development. When it was donated to the Kiwanis, the express purpose was for recreation, for scouting troops, that sort of thing. There is a condition in the deed that if it is no longer used for this purpose, the land would automatically revert back to one of the owners, which I believe the last name was Mishu. I didn't see it as, it's not, I don't think it's a relation to Rick Mishu, who used to be the town manager here, but there was a Mishu family that was mentioned that this property would revert back to their ownership. I don't know if that's a descendant of the Pomelos or not.
So we're getting a general idea that we want to say no to this? Is that what we need to take a vote?
No, I just brought it to you for discussion. I don't think you need to take a,
Go for
action on it.
Yeah, we have no purpose for this, getting this land, right?
I don't see any purpose, no.
Since the deed is restricted and we couldn't develop it into anything else, it would have to be taken as another recreational area similar to the Pines, similar to the boat landing, and like Jeff mentioned, the things that we already try to maintain.
So we're looking at a thumbs down?
Yes, yeah.
Go ahead.
If we can't use it for anything, it's too bad that it has a restriction, you know?
Savage?
Yeah, we don't need it.
I guess the answer's no, Mr. Pierce.
So I'll just clean up the minutes to say that the board took no action, so.
All right, number 4, discuss TIF review.
I gave you in your packets a separate document that I hope everybody has. I was gonna use the screen tonight, but with Zoom, it's complicated, so. What I thought I'd do at this meeting is kind of run through some of the general background history of the TIFs in town, not go through this entire document, but do this as a primer so that when the board meets again in September, we'll be approving the economic development budget, which is the spending of the TIF dollars. So that will be coming up on September 14th. I think this would be helpful so that everybody's kind of on the same page as how we get there. And just so that everyone is aware, the September 14th meeting will be in East Madison. It will be at the East Madison Fire Station. So we'll send out reminders, but just mark your calendars now. So if that's okay with the board, I'll just go through this a few slides at a time. We'll stop me and ask questions as we go. This has been a pretty brief meeting now, so why keep it brief? So I'll just go on to great detail, right? All right. So when we talk about TIFs, on the bottom of the first page, it says definition of terms. The acronym TIF simply stands for tax increment financing. And this is a way a company may finance a project by using a break that they receive on their taxes. So when a town creates a TIF, it creates a TIF district where the value is sheltered and the company can get some of their tax payments back. But that part of getting the tax payment back is the second term, the credit enhancement agreement. So you can have a TIF and not have a credit enhancement agreement. Then all you're doing is sheltering the value. That taxpayer is not getting any of their money back. To get their money back, they have to enter into another agreement called a credit enhancement agreement. And that's when they come to the town and they want to negotiate. Do you want to do a 70%, 30% split? How long do you want to do it for? 10 years, 15 years, 20 years? That's where the negotiations go back and forth. The TIF district, these are the physical tracts of land where development takes place and new valuation can be sheltered. Right now in Madison, there's a TIF district on all the property that Backyard Farms owns on River Road. So any new development that Backyard Farms does, if they want to build another greenhouse, if they want to build housing for workers, all of that would be sheltered from taxation. In other words, we wouldn't have to report to the state the extra value, and whatever they would pay in taxes, they would get a portion of that back.
So to have a TIF, the company also needs to have produced jobs in the community, correct?
It's not required.
Yep.
But it is I think that is a good negotiation tool. If a company comes to the town and says, we would like a TIF with a credit enhancement agreement, and that company's not gonna provide any jobs, then you as a board can say, really, what's in it for the town? Why don't we just leave it the way it is and you pay your taxes? So to give a couple real examples, Backyard Farms is currently the largest TIF we have, but the Woodlands Senior Living Facility out on East Madison Road, they came and said, we'd like to build this facility. It'll have 40-some beds. It'll be memory care for people with Alzheimer's, dementia, and we're going to create 30 jobs. But we would like to have a credit enhancement agreement, and they had done this in every town. They've done it in Waterville, they've done it in Farmington, they've done it in every town they've been in, so it's kind of their mode of operation. So when they came, it seemed to be attractive to the town, creation of jobs, certainly a facility that was going to be a benefit to people in our community. So what the town agreed to was a 15-year credit enhancement agreement and a 15-year TIF and a 85-15 split. So Woodlands gets 85% of their taxes back. This was their first year. Their tax bill was, just about $100,000. They'll get $85,000 back, and the town will keep that remainder $15,000. And that will go on for the next 15 years, and then that Woodlands one will be done. The company that builds the big battery storage units that MEW has at the end of Jones Street, and MEW has one in the business park, that company approached the town, and I brought it to the selectmen and said they'd like a TIF. And the question's asked, how many jobs does it create? 0. Why do you want a TIF? Well, we just thought it would be helpful for us if we got, 50, 60, 70% of our taxes back. And so this board chose not to take any action on that because it didn't seem to be advantageous to the town. So in our book of, or our code of ordinances, we have a TIF policy. And that TIF policy spells out the things that the town looks at when they consider giving a TIF. And in that TIF policy, it talks about job creation, talks about the benefit to the town. So not everybody that asks automatically gets a TIF. It's part of the, economic development, give and take. And it usually has to do with land and buildings. For example, GoLab here that's doing some work at Madison Paper, it's unlikely that they will ask for a TIF because most of their value is going to be in the equipment. And the equipment will already be tax exempt through Betty. So the GoLab situation is a little bit different. It's not as advantageous for a TIF. So getting back to the TIF districts, all the land in backyard farms, in 2013, the town did an amendment to our backyard farms TIF, and we created a second track of TIF districts. The business park, where the solar field is a TIF district. All of the buildings downtown are TIF districts. Now that does not mean that any development automatically enters into a tax arrangement. But if somebody wanted to do a development downtown or in the business park or in these areas and wanted to go into a TIF agreement for a credit enhancement agreement for any increased value, they could because it's already been designated. And I think Dana Berry was the town manager at that time, and they thought it was a good idea to kind of expand the district as much as they could. So, any question on definition of terms? All right, so on the second page, here's some of the specifics on the current TIFs and credit enhancement agreements that Madison has. For backyard farms, it's a $45 million investment. They have 250 employees. It's a 30-year TIF, which means the TIF expires in 2035. But it's a 20-year credit enhancement agreement. So this deal where backyard farms get 70% of their taxes back, that ends in a couple of years, in 2025. Right now it's a 70-30 split. And we get enhanced Betty for personal property, which was a once-in-a-lifetime deal because the state was changing their Better Betty rules, and Bill Van Tynen was building this TIF at the time. And so for us, it's a great benefit because we get 100% reimbursement on all backyard farms equipment. Everybody else that has Betty, we don't get 100%. We get about 57% back. So this was a really, really good opportunity when backyard farms came to town. It benefits the town. So you compare that to our newest one, Woodlands. It's about a $5 million investment with 30 employees. It's a 15-year TIF and a 15-year credit enhancement with an 85-15 split. And we did not include any personal property in this TIF. So anything that Woodlands claims for business equipment, and there could be a couple $100,000 there, that they'll pay the taxes on that just like any other business would. It won't go into the TIF. It's completely separated So you take a look at some of the numbers that come into the town, that's on the bottom of that slide. Backyard farms, they have a tax bill, so if they didn't have a TIF, their tax bill would be $597,903. Right now, when they pay that $597,000 in taxes, our agreement is we return $418,000 to them. So that's the money they get back. So they get $400,000 of their taxes back every year, and that's the money they use to pay off the financing that they took out to build the place. That's why it's called tax increment financing. So they get an increment of their taxes back to finance the building. We retain $179,000. That's what we keep, and that's what goes into our TIF funds. Now, because of this magical enhanced Betty, we get an additional $300,000 that goes into our TIF fund, because we get to retain all of the taxes on the personal property of Backyard Farms. So the total to the town from Backyard Farms every year is approximately $480,000. And that fluctuates up and down depending on our tax rate, depending on the valuation. With Woodlands, it's much more straightforward. Their tax bill is about $95,000, they return $80,000, we retain $14,000. So between the two TIFs, we will take in about $500,000 a year in money that we can spend on economic development projects. So that kind of gives you the idea of where the money comes in. It is taxpayer money. So don't be fooled by thinking that TIF money is not taxpayer money. It is taxpayer money. It's just it can't go into the general fund. It's just put into a special account that has to be used for economic development projects.
This is what?
Can you give a brief explanation of the Betty, please?
So BETE is B-E-T-E, which is Business Equipment Tax Exemption. There used to be a program from the state called BETR, which was Business Equipment Tax Reimbursement. In that old program, BETR, a business like Madison Paper that had, $100 million paper machine, they would pay their taxes and then they would file for a reimbursement from the state. And the state would give them a reimbursement for the taxes they paid to the town. Well, as you can see, that's a nice idea, but that gets pretty cumbersome after a while. So during the LePage administration, the governor said, just wipe all that better out and make it all BETE. Just exempt all their taxes, and instead of the state paying back the big business, each town will be responsible for calculating how much business equipment tax exempt stuff they have, and the state will reimburse us. So the state found it a lot easier to deal with municipalities than they did big businesses. So we bend over a lot easier and just say, okay, we'll do it. So. Any other questions on?
Mr. Moody?
Tim, what are the so-called windows of how far and what you can do on each one of these, or are they the same? What are you eligible to do with the money from these TIFs?
That's coming up on the next page.
Hey, how about that?
You've anticipated the questions. So if you turn to page 3, at the top box, it says how town TIF funds are spent. So each town must submit a project list that has to be approved by your local voters at town meeting, and then it has to go to the state and be approved by DECD. And the projects must qualify under this state law, Title 30. So that gets to your point, Mr. Moody, is state law tells you what categories you can spend this in. And for some reason, it says you cannot spend TIF money on a playground, but you can spend TIF money on a boat landing. So the state law is always evolving, and it doesn't always make sense. You can buy parts of a fire truck with it, but you can't buy a police cruiser with it. So it's right there in the law, and it sounds silly, but that's the way it is. So currently, the town of Madison has a list of about 14 categories where our TIF funds can be spent. And in our TIF agreement, it says that the select board has the final say on TIF spending as long as you're within those 14 categories. Now, if you remember, back when Madison Paper, we lost all that valuation, the select board at the time was asking lots of questions like, let's just take the TIF money and spend it here. Let's just take the TIF money and cover all of our gaps. Well, that wasn't as easy to do because you could only spend TIF money on certain things that were covered in those categories. You just couldn't dump it into the general fund to try to keep everybody's taxes down. So, at the bottom of there on page 3, and I think it goes on to page 4, yeah, here are the categories. You can spend TIF projects in Madison on matching grants and revolving loans, a certain percentage of administration costs, percentage of highway costs, percentage of fire and rescue costs, and a percentage of utility costs. Road safety, salt and calcium, this is why we've spent almost all of our salt money out of TIF over the last 5 years, because it falls under a category that we got approved under road safety. Job training, infrastructure needs. I'll pause right here before we go to the next page. You see all those percentages of admin, highway, fire, utility. If you remember at town meeting, you'll see when our articles are approved at town meeting for administration, highway, fire, and utility, there will be a line in there that says less TIF. So when you approve the amount of money for the Public Works Department, you have this number, 600,000, less 50,000 TIF, so that you're really raising from taxation 550,000. That's where this comes in, and that was a result of the select board at the time, after the lowering of the value of Madison Paper, to shift a lot of the TIF dollars to pay for a lot of our regular expenses. Now, that was not without controversy, but it is allowed within the governance of our TIF. So any questions on that part?
On the percentage of these, does it say what the percentage is, or we determine that?
In our TIF agreement that's signed off on by DECD, there are actual numbers in there. And I think there's something, it's crazy, but it's something like 14.5% of certain lines can be applied. So if you turn to the top of the next page, this is a continuation of that list on the bottom of page 3. Sidewalks, traffic and safety issues, road repair within the TIF district. Now if you look at these roads, Blackwell Hill, Russell, Golf Course, River Road, Old County, Ward Hill. The reason that former town manager Dana Berry got all these roads in the TIF district was because they're all feeder roads to and from backyard farms. And so the state said, okay, we agree with that. So any road work done on these roads can be paid for out of TIF. Doesn't have to be, but it can be paid for out of TIF. Which is why every year when we present the budget, we have roads that we're gonna pave and raise it out of taxation, and then we have roads that we're gonna pave and take it out of TIF. And we've done that for the last 5 years. Eliminate blight, market rate housing development, recreational trails, public boat landings. And those are the umbrella categories. Doesn't mean we have to spend money there, no. Obviously, we've spent more money in some and less, if none, in others. So that's what gets to the next slide. I wanted to give you, and these are just round numbers. Oh.
Yeah, like this house we just, can I do this?
Yeah, go ahead.
Like this house we just talked about here, we would call that dangerous house, we would call that blight, and then we could take TIF money and tear that down?
Probably not. You couldn't tear that down unless you had the backing to do it. Let me back up here. The action the board took tonight was not to give a notice to correct by removing the building.
Right.
It was just to repair it.
Right.
In the past, the select board has given a notice of correct to remove the buildings, like Naomi Avenue.
Mm.
And in those cases, TIF money's not really used because if the property owner doesn't tear it down after a certain time, we can go to court and get a judge's order, and we can go in and tear it down and bill the person and attach it to their tax bill. So eventually, either they pay it or the town acquires the property. In other cases where we have torn down property that we've acquired, right out here at the corner of Locust Street, there was 5 Locust Street, there's a large 2-story house. The town acquired that through tax foreclosure, and the town used some funds from TIF to tear it down and eliminate that blight. So it all depends on who owns it and how we get ownership of it. I guess what I'd like to do tonight is just do the last slides on page 4 and the top of page 5, because this will really help you in thinking about that TIF budget that will come before you in September. So here's a brief history of 5 years, from 2016 through 2020, of what we have spent TIF money on. Matching grants or revolving loans, about $250,000. Of those, administrative costs, $261. Highway costs, $588. Fire costs, $285. Utilities, $237. Road safety, buying salt and calcium, $315. Job training, haven't had a project on that. Infrastructure needs, very little, about $12.5. Top of the next page on page 5. Sidewalks, we've spent about $30,000. Road repair within the TIF district, just under $400,000. The blight, market rate housing development, recreational trails, boat landings, we haven't spent any. And we have about $100,000 that we've spent in general economic development. You remember when the Backyard Farms TIF started, Norm Dean was the town manager and he hired Joy Heichel. All of Joy Heichel's expenses came out of TIF for those years. But I don't go back that far, I just went back to five years. So some of our economic development includes sponsorship of Madison Hanson Days, the Christmas celebration, some of those other events that we call attraction events. So you can see that's how we've spent about $2.5 million or about $500,000 a year in TIF over the last 5 years. We spend pretty much all the TIF money we take in over the last 5 years. So we don't have a bank of it anywhere. We don't have a large account. Kathy doesn't have a special room that has $1 million in it. At least she hasn't told me if she has one.
So that total, if all of that is in the budget, that would be 2 mils?
So if you were to take that 500,000, like
We
485,
did not spend.
yeah, that would be probably about $1.75 on your mill rate. So if you want to go any further, you can, but I thought that that's enough to digest tonight, so.
Anybody have any questions on what we've gone over?
Is this helpful? Okay. Do you not care at all?
The only one that's, for me, is matching grants and loans. It's hard sometimes to pick the matching grant ones when you get a whole bunch of them in, and they're all great projects, and you're trying to figure out where to give money to. It's very difficult. And that's what's improvement. Obviously, what Mr. Gopey did was improvement, but sometimes it doesn't always appear that way when you get done. Any other questions? Mr. Gopey?
The thing I looked on that TIF and the improvement, if it's done outdoors, so it's visible, that makes a world of difference. I mean, you can easily spend, in a business, you can spend $1,000 inside and not see the difference. But when it's on the outside and you got good people working, it makes it look good.
Well, people for years have often said, wow, when's Madison gonna do something with their downtown? How come they don't spruce up the downtown? And there's only so much the town can do without someone that is a business owner putting out that kind of money. And if you think about it, between the Atomic Trophy and Atomic Guns and Wicked Lettuce on one corner, and then you can go back to Jamie Salters buying Wayne Wallace's building and sprucing that up for the chiropractic, and now they're putting new siding on Colby Seam's old bookstore, there is progress taking place, but the town just doesn't snap their fingers to get it done. It takes a combination of town money and really private investment.
It's the one we just paid for you, that was given a year ago,
Right.
so that hasn't been that long that we haven't given out money.
That's correct. So,
Yeah.
when you-
18 or 19? 19.
that was 19, right?
Yeah, that, you gave, I think, 7 out that
That's
last time, last year.
Yeah.
And
So
all
when-
of those have been paid? Everybody?
That was the last one.
Yeah.
So all of those have been paid out. And so in your economic development budget, if you want to set aside money for matching grants for this coming year, for the latter half of 2020 into 2021, that'll be a decision for you at the September 14th meeting.
Sweeney, a question?
No, all said, thank you.
Mr. Savage, any selectmen's concerns?
None.
Mrs. Dwyer?
No,
Mr. Gopian?
Not right now.
Mr. Moody? The only thing I had was just make everybody aware, apparently the Madison food cupboard, People Who Care food cupboard is moving out to the church, the back of the church on 201. I don't know the name of it, but
Well, we all call it the log cabin church, that's what everybody's referred to.
so they're moving out there, so we're gonna have some empty space down here,
Yes.
The whole side's gonna be empty, right?
downstairs.
I know what I want.
Oh, downstairs.
Okay, so just that will, hopefully that will go well for them.
Mm.
Mr. Moody?
Yeah,
We'll go back to this,
I did want to ask Tim, this renovation that we're doing, are we pulling that out of some tip money that's left?
We don't really have any allocation for TIF money to go toward this project. If you recall, we funded quite a bit out of the carry forward at the last meeting. So hopefully, the guy that Kathy's hired right now is pretty cheap. So once the demo's done, that's when the real expense will start.
Well, we got it covered.
We do. We're taking it a little bit of time. And I did get some quotes for lighting, and we'll see some lighting going on this next couple of weeks outside.
What is your definition of some?
You'll be able to see your way to your car when you leave here. Not tonight, but in coming nights. We talked about putting some nice floodlights that are not too bright, but they cover off the building all the corners of the parking lot. So
Okay.
I'm confident that you'll be
We got
pleased with
the,
that.
got the ends covered too?
Yep. Yep, and all the walkways have to be covered, so.
All right.
Citizens' concerns. Citizens' concerns? All right, seeing none, looking for motion to adjourn?
So moved.
We have a motion and a second to adjourn. All those in favor? All in favor, the motion carries. We are adjourned at 7:21.